Hi, happy Friday, everyone. I wanted to jump on and do an impromptu live just based on my experience this morning that I had with a new prospective client. And I found that if I don't kind of do a live with these, in the trenches trainings and sharing experiences immediately after it happens, I forget about it. So before I jump into about 4 hours of meetings this morning and afternoon, I wanted to share my experience of a test project that I just wrapped up maybe 20 minutes ago and how that can help you as you're growing your business. Test projects are pretty common these days. Most clients want to see that you can do the work before they begin on a long-term contract or a retainer with you. However, and there goes my washing machine going off, of course. Perfect timing, right? Clients often will ask for this. And sometimes as freelancers, maybe we don't want to do a test project because it seems like why get paid for one or two small things when it's not the retainer or the long-term gig that you were hoping for. However, there are big benefits to doing a test project as a freelancer. And often we forget about how to use that to figure out whether we truly want to work with the client. So I love test projects because they will tell you a lot about the way that the client operates, the way that you get paid, what you'll be expected to do, and how you'll be expected to communicate going forward. But even as successful freelancers, we're never done learning lessons. We always tend to do the same things kind of over and over again, the same bad habits. We learn those same lessons over and over again, and we have to continually bring ourselves back. So one of those lessons for me has to do with recognizing that even if I'm in the midst of a test project, I don't have to work with a particular client. And I had a prospective client reach out to me around 2 weeks ago and offer me kind of a long-term position that would be okay, like not my biggest retainer, but a medium-sized retainer. And it was with a really well-known name in my space of freelance writing. And so, of course, I'm on board to do the test project. He kind of shared some information about how they work, how they pay. I asked him some questions on a phone call. Fine, we're ready to move forward. And he shared that the test project would be writing just 2 pages for one of their clients. So they're a digital marketing agency. And as soon as I saw the requirements that came back for that two-page project, there were just a lot of red flags that came up immediately. And honestly, in hindsight, earlier this week when I got it, I should have responded right away and said, this isn't a fit. I don't like it. First of all, he wanted a completed paid sample within 2 business days, which may be okay for some people. But when I'm in the middle of a week, by Wednesday or so, usually my entire schedule is filled for the rest of the week with client projects, client phone calls, things I have to do and get done. So it wasn't already, I could tell, I don't really want to have things where somebody has me on a clock of that they're choosing when it starts for 48 hours from that point. And, what if I'm not available? What if I'm busy? What if something comes up? It didn't give me enough flexibility. And then I saw the writing guidelines document, and it was about 23 pages long. And this was to write 500-word blogs, mind you. I mean, they went into so much detail. I also train people how to onboard freelancers, and in particular, how to hire content writers. Been a project manager in a lot of positions where I've done that. And I've been the one responsible for laying down the guidelines and how invoices will be sent and everything. So I've seen both sides of that. And it's important to have instructions because with no instructions, there's too much room for interpretation on the part of the freelancer. But it's also a negative to have too many instructions because the entire time that I was working on this project, I felt like it was extremely formulaic. There was no creativity for me as a writer. It was essentially a dictation about what I needed to put in the header tags, exactly how many times XYZ things needed to appear. In paragraph 1, you must reference how long this company has been in business. And it was just very formulaic. It actually took me way longer than any of the other pieces that I usually work on because of that. And I knew that that was going to happen because on Wednesday when I opened this document, I saw that and I put it off. I procrastinated on it. So that's another sign that this may not be the right client for you, is that you put off the project that they've given you because you really don't want to work on it. So it was due today, so I knew I was going to have to do it this morning. And I kind of backed myself into a corner knowing I'd have all these phone calls and responsibilities the rest of the day. So that was the only thing I needed to work on this morning for one of my clients. But when I started doing it, it was just a drag. And I started to go to a negative mental space of, this sucks, I'm not enjoying this. And it didn't click for about 20 minutes into this project that I don't have to do this. One, I don't have to do the paid sample project. And two, I don't have to work with this client long term. And the minute, I was like halfway, 3/4 done with this mini project by the time I came to this realization, which should have been obvious. And that's when I realized I'm not going to work for this client. Like, I don't care what the retainer is. I don't care what the opportunities are going forward. I'm practically fully booked already. And this project is not enjoyable. Like, it's so important to realize that it's not always about the money. It's not always about the long-term opportunity. I shared earlier in the group this week that I went through and listed all of the clients I'm currently working with, and then kind of ranked them by how much I enjoyed the project. And I enjoy projects for different reasons. Sometimes the work is challenging and interesting. So I have one client who's really outside the norm for my typical projects, but they give me copywriting work, and I really love doing it. And it's something so different that it gives my brain a change of pace. So even though it wasn't my typical project, that was on my list for one of my favorite clients because of the opportunities that they provide. There's different reasons why you may enjoy working with clients, and sometimes part of that may be the money, but it's not always necessarily going to be the case that it's about the money. And the client that I'm sharing with you today is a great example, because even though it would have been a decently sized project, I could already see down the road how this wouldn't fit into the business model that I've already established. I don't like being on call, even if it's for 48 hours notice in advance. And the project took me so long to complete because it was more like doing a math equation, making sure this fits here and this fits there. And did I say that enough times? And did I word that properly? And it wasn't fun. It really felt like plug and play, and it didn't feel like writing. And a lot of my clients give me free reign over how I write because I've been doing it for a long time. I know what's going to work well on their sites and translate to their audience. And doing something like that just wasn't fun. So I finished the project because I was almost done and I turned it in. But the minute that I made the decision that I was not going to work with this client regardless, it was a sense of freedom came over me. All of the blocks, the creative blocks I had been having about doing this project, procrastinating on it, feeling frustrated as I'm writing it, disappeared, gone immediately, because this is not my responsibility. I don't have to take this client. I don't need this client, and I definitely don't want this client. So doing a test project is not just for the client. It's for you as the freelancer. It is for you to figure out whether you like working with this person. And there are so many ways that a relationship can go wrong. It's pretty amazing when we get a client who fits all of our check boxes. They pay on time, they're easy to communicate with, they have clear instructions, but not too many instructions. They give you appropriate deadlines. All of those things kind of make for a great client. But the test project isn't just for the client to hold over your head and say, you met our guidelines or you didn't. It's also for you to say, do I really want to do this? Is this something I would want to continue to do over the long term? And it is far better to figure out when it's not right for you before you dive into taking on bigger projects with this client where you're accountable to them. And then you feel even more obligated. So for me today, I just had to write 2 pages. And frankly, who cares? I don't care whether the client likes it or not, because I didn't enjoy doing it. And that may seem like a really negative mindset to have, but it helped me break free of trying to do every little thing perfectly. I sent in to the best of my ability what would meet their 23-page guidelines, but did I read every page? And each of these pages had like 10 linked other pages they wanted me to go read? No. I didn't, because I don't have time for that. And for what they were paying for a trial project, it wasn't worth it. So the only reason I even finished it was because I had already started. But the freedom of saying, you know what, I don't have to take this client, and I can already tell I wouldn't like working with them. So it really helped me to wrap up this project effectively and put it in the past. Like now it's sent. I was able to finish a lot faster than I thought, because when I started working on it, I thought this is going to take me hours because all these stupid little details. And as soon as I realized that I'm going to turn this in because I want their end client to have the website pages that they need. And I don't want to just blow them off, the day of the deadline. But going forward, it's not my job to please people like that. And I really don't like working with clients like that. I'm sharing this with you because when you go into a test project, you need to treat it as a two-way street. It's for the client to give you a trial run. It's also for you to give the client a trial run and monitor how you feel as you're doing it. There are some cases where there's instructions provided to you that may take a minute to get a handle on. I was brought on as an editor for one of my clients that I also write articles for. And at first the editing took me much longer because there was like a 10-step checklist and I had to, go and double check myself, make sure that I did it right and everything. But ultimately I became much faster at it because I have that checklist memorized now and it's much easier to go through. But there's a difference between that and somebody who has so many instructions that you're essentially setting yourself up for failure. As you're going through a trial project, monitor how the client is communicating with you. Are they putting additional pressure on you? Are they changing instructions midstream and it's confusing? Are you enjoying what you're doing? I wasn't. This morning, I felt drudgery. I felt like the early days of my freelancing when I had another client like this, where they were just so unbelievably picky and they were so low paying. And it was just, eventually I just fired them and said, this isn't worth it. This is not valuable for me or for the client because I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. And I'm sure that in some, at least subtle way, that's being reflected in the end project. So the end product. So when you do a trial run, always ask for one if you can, because you deserve to know how it's going to work with this client, just as the client deserves to know whether or not it's going to work with you. And don't get tied to the outcome. Do not set yourself up in a position where you're working on projects you don't like simply because you feel obligated to do it. You don't have to do that. You're not responsible for making other people happy, okay? So if it's not a project you want to work on, let it go. Let it go with grace, let it go with ease. Don't get all tied up in the outcome, but simply place a firm boundary there. I knew as soon as I sent the email to this client, I have no intention of working for them ever again. And that's okay. I tried. I would not have met really amazing clients like my copywriting client or like the client who gave me editing work on top of writing work if I hadn't tried. But those were good trial experiences. They were experiences where I could tell it's going to take me a minute to get the hang of this, but it's not so difficult that I would hate doing it every single time. And that was a very distinct emotional difference from how I felt today. So monitor your emotions, check in with yourself. How do you feel while you're communicating with clients? Even if you're in the pitching phase, how is the communication during the pitching phase? Is this person already difficult to deal with and you've got multiple red flags popping up? That's probably a sign that it's not the right fit for you. So something to consider and just keep in the back of your mind as you go forward, how to use a trial project so that it works for you and for the client. You don't have to take on a trial project client. You don't have to take on or keep any client. That's part of the reason so many of us are in this freelance business. We want freedom. We want flexibility. We want to be able to choose who we work with. And one of the reasons that I like to share these pitfalls and obstacles that I have is because it should be reassuring to you that every freelancer, even freelancers who are booked, who have been booked, who are six-figure freelancers, who are growing their business at a rapid pace, we all experience challenges and we all learn lessons. Often it's the same lessons we need to learn over and over again. And for me, that was the case today. I never should have said I would do this trial project. It wasn't a fit. I knew it in my gut from the moment that I got the writing materials and I saw the requirements for turning it around so quickly. But now I'm choosing to use that as a learning lesson and to help you all. So I did what I needed to do to get the project turned in. I'll never work on something like that again, hopefully. I mean, I may probably still need to learn that lesson a couple times in the future. Sometimes we have to learn things over and over again for it to really resonate. But everybody has stumbling blocks. It's okay. Don't stop and beat yourself up about the fact that you made a mistake or you could have handled a situation differently. View it as a learning opportunity. So what are you going to do going forward to make sure that doesn't happen? Well, I'm now going to be much more focused when I get a trial project of looking for red flags that could indicate it's going to be a problem before we even start working together. And I'm going to cut the relationship before I promise to do even a trial project if it's bad already. And then if you're in a trial project and maybe you submit it and the client comes back with 50 revisions on a 1-page blog, another sign that, this isn't the project for you. And that's going to have to be a judgment call over whether you complete all those revisions to get paid or whether you just let it go. But it's far better to learn this lesson on a small trial project before getting involved in a big project. Like, say I had been responsible for completing 10 website pages instead of 2. I definitely would have stressed myself out. I wouldn't have done a good job. It would have taken me forever to do this project, and it wouldn't have been worth it because I would have invested all that time on a client I didn't want to work with. So I'm glad I learned the lesson with 2 pages. And don't get so emotionally invested in your clients. I know I see this a lot, especially in other freelancing groups. People get super psyched about a client before the client is even signed, when they begin working with the client, and they have so much invested in this working out. They've already envisioned this client being a part of their roster, or this client bringing in income to the freelancer's business. And they're so emotionally invested that they'll stay in bad situations, or they'll waste their energy on like praying and hoping that this one works out when it's clearly going nowhere, or when it might not go anywhere. So that's a title for a whole different live video. But to recap here, use trial projects. Remember, they're for you, not just the client. Figure out when it's not going to work and cut the ties early on. And it will make you feel so much better about the way that you approach your business. I immediately felt relief just in the decision that I don't have to do this, and I'm not going to. So I hope that helps you as you go forward growing your business. Post any questions you might have about using trial projects on this live video, and I'll be happy to respond. All right, bye guys.